Hello and welcome to the Sunday Guardian podcast by Joyeeta Basu. Today I have an interesting topic to discuss, terrorism, specifically counter-terrorism, which way the world, particularly the subcontinent, is headed when it comes to terrorism. Are we going to witness a rise in terrorism now that Bangladesh is in a flux? There's a Manipur situation. What's happening in Kashmir? What's happening in Pakistan, Afghanistan? And which way, how is India handling these issues in particular? Now, to discuss all this and much more, I have a very special guest with me today, Major General Dhruv Katoch, who has a great experience in counter-terrorism operations, and he is currently Director General, India Foundation. Welcome to the show, Major General Katoch. And the thing is, since you have been posted in Jammu and Kashmir, since you have seen firsthand how these things happen, what would you say, or how would you say the situation has changed over the years? Are we seeing a better situation after, say, the abrogation of Article 370? What about, what are the groups that are functioning in Jammu and Kashmir? If you can give us an overview.
Thank you, Joyeeta. It's always a pleasure being here. Now, you see, Kashmir has been a very complex problem, and especially it was made complex because of the support which terrorist groups received from across the border from Pakistan. But let me make one opening statement, that the abrogation of Article 370 was perhaps the best decision taken by the government of India. Because without that abrogation, I don't think we would ever have been in a position to have come to any sort of solution. Now, I understand that there are acts of terror which still take place. It will take time. But had we not abrogated this particular article, and I'll explain the reasons why, it wouldn't have mattered how much strength of the army you put there. We could never have got peace. You could have kept the area stable, but you couldn't have got peace. So that is the fundamental difference. Now, I just want to go back to after the 71 Liberation War. That was the time Pakistan felt humiliated and they wanted to do something about it. Now, in the 60s itself, a very slow process of radicalization had started in the Kashmir Valley. It didn't really pick up too much steam, but it had started. And it continued after that, and it picked up a lot of pace in the 70s. And what happens is when you go towards the 80s and towards the end of the 80s, a very large segment of society had got radicalized. Now, the local parties which were there, I think they turned a blind eye to it. Either they were complicit or they were ignorant. But they turned a blind eye. And this strength grew. At some point of time, a very large number of these people who were supporting the Jamaat, etc., they were disbanded, but they were taken on into the people who were teaching in the madrasas and all. They were taken on into the state education board. So then we found that this sort of a teaching actually seeped into the academic curriculum of Jammu and Kashmir. And then when the battle line started, I don't think India was prepared. At least the state was certainly not well prepared. And then the insurgency started. The terrorism started. And I was there in those years. I was there from 93 to 96. I spent 3 years there. It had started towards the end of 89, and it had become very vicious by the time I was there. And I can assure you that the efforts required to control it were tremendous. In fact, there were many people who used to wonder at that time, will we ever get back control? But we got back control. And I think the security forces and the administration over the years have done a wonderful job, despite the consistent effort by Pakistan to stoke the fires. Now, another thing happened. In 2014, when the government changed, you see, suddenly you found a government, that they said, okay, it's a different government. And then you had Narendra Modi actually going to Lahore in an attempt to make peace. And that was followed immediately by the Samba attacks and other attacks on Indian soil. And that time the government realized it's not going to work anymore. It doesn't matter how much effort you put to extend the hand of friendship to Pakistan, they are not going to reciprocate. And then the policy changed. Now, I think that was a very important step, that when this policy changed, they said, okay, terror and talks will not go together. So that was one symbolic change. And then the second one, which was carried out, was, of course, when Article 370 went. And the state was put under president's rule. And now, of course, we've got election and a government in power is there. But it has made a tremendous difference as far as the life of the people is concerned. Why you're not going to get normalcy very, very quickly is the fact that it has been 30 to 40 years that the people there have been radicalized. They have been given a particular narrative. And 2 or 3 generations have been through that narrative. So a peace is going to take time. That means you've got to de-radicalize people, right from school children age. The process has started. We've taken about 5 years. Let us give it about 5 to 10 years more. I think then the generations which are going to come up, they will not really have that poison of radicalization in their veins. And that is going to make a difference.
Now, when you're talking about this change that has come, that has come about, of course, when you're looking at the army and the army's role in curbing terrorism, how important that has been to apart from Article 370, of course, prior to Article 370, how would you say the army has been responsible for bringing about making the situation better?
You see, had it not been for the army, the state would have seceded. We'd have lost it.
Okay.
So the most important thing which happened is, with the army coming in and started, operating, a semblance of administration was restored. Without the army, there was no administration. So it was at the backing of the army that all the governments post, from the 90s onwards, had the army not been there, no administration would have been able to function, whether it was the political establishment or, in governor's rule, the civil administration. They couldn't have done it. So the army kept the situation under control, but they were not in a position really to eliminate the problem, because the source of the problem did not lie in Jammu and Kashmir. The source was in Rawalpindi. It was in Pindi, in the army headquarters of Pakistan. And we had no means really of getting there. So for Pakistan, it was a very low-cost option. They could actually promote terrorism within India at a very low cost. For the Indian nation, we had to expend tremendous resources in terms of manpower in keeping that area stable, or at least to a very large extent free of violence. There was no peace, but it was to a very large extent free of violence. That means we curbed that. So to that extent, the role of the army was, with that, of course, also the role of the other security forces, the local police and the others who took part. They played a very important role. But let me tell you, the civil administration had collapsed. They were just not in a position to function for many, many years. And now we have got the semblance. The civil administration has come back. They are at the forefront. In any of these things, you see, the front face should always be the civil administration. The deputy commissioner, the police, that is the face of the civil administration, of governance. And once that face comes in the foreground, that means peace is coming back. You're seeing that now.
Yeah, but when you're talking about the ground, the same people who were there, they're still there. How is it that Pakistan is not being able to, I would say, maybe fund them, instigate them, to start again another cycle of terror?
You see, what really happened with 370 was the nexus broke. Now, what happened was when 370 was part of the statute, there were 2 constitutions. Of course, a large part of the Indian constitution has been incorporated into the J&K constitution, what they call the Ranbir Singh Code. That was what they were following. Right? And it had many of the provisions of the Indian constitution, but there were many things, as far as the Ranbir Singh Code was concerned, which could only happen there. That means, especially when you're looking into, you couldn't try people from Jammu and Kashmir outside Jammu and Kashmir. Okay. So there was that blanket sort of a sanction that, okay, whatever happens here, it happens here. Same for the banks. Now, the banks didn't come under the control of the RBI. And so, there was that financial loophole, there was the legal loophole. So if you really had to sort out people, then where was the justice? Even at the lower level, the people, the judges, etc., you see, they were under the threat of the gun. So they were very cautious. They were, I can understand that. They had their families to look after. But they were under very serious threat. So they could, the rulings which they gave, the judgments which they gave, could only go one way. Now, when this nexus broke, what really happened was that the overground workers, they lost their protection. The local politicians, and I blame both the local parties there for it also, they were in contact with with the Pakistanis, especially through the Hurriyat. And the Hurriyat was a very powerful force, though it wasn't powerful enough to win elections, but it was so powerful that the other elected parties really couldn't operate without the Hurriyat. The Hurriyat was extremely powerful that way. Now that link also broke. And once those linkages started breaking and, the financial controls, etc. came in, then the ability of the Pakistani ISI to interfere in what is happening in India reduced substantially. Today, you have isolated acts of terror. But they will keep reducing. They will keep reducing. I won't say they'll be eliminated altogether, but they will reduce. And very large, like just two days back, we had an operation in which 5 of these terrorists were killed. Now, where did that information come from? It came from the locals. It was a pinpoint operation. So obviously, you see, the public is also understanding which way the wind is blowing. They know that this terrorism is on the way out. And their desire to keep it living is reducing also by the day. So the public support, they are losing the public support. The security forces are gaining that public support. The public administration is gaining that public support. I think this election was an excellent thing which happened. You see, regardless of, that one party took the majority and another party was, the Mehbooba Mufti's party was practically washed out. But that doesn't really matter. You see, it was the people's mandate. And if the people felt that way, well, that is the way democracy works. So there was a people's mandate, and the people know that this was a mandate delivered justly. Some people may like it, some people may not like it, but it was a mandate delivered freely of the will of the people. So it reflects the will of the people of Jammu and Kashmir, and I think that's very important. And once those people realize that their will is being reflected, it is the biggest blow against terrorism and insurgencies. So I think things are going well now. There will be incidences, but I think they will be curbed.
So when you're talking about this support from local people is kind of trying to, it is subsiding, but what kind of terrorism has Jammu and Kashmir been witnessing, and especially in the latest bout? There's something called Kashmir Resistance Front that has come up apparently. And then, so would you say these people the terrorists are more local, or are they Pakistanis? What exactly is the nature of the terrorism?
You see, even when you had these organizations which are still there, the Lashkar-e-Taiba, the Hizbul Mujahideen, all of them, they've got their headquarters based in Pakistan. But they've been operating in India. They were there when I was there, right? So it's really a question of getting financial and other support. So that support is still there from Pakistan. And even at those times, there used to be a few people. There would be Pakistanis there would be a few Afghans, there would be the local Kashmiris. There was right? And at that time also there was a large percentage of local Kashmiris. But that percentage has reduced now. And the number of people who are being recruited from locally, from the Kashmir Valley into terrorism is also reduced. As it is, the mothers know, the Kashmiri mother knows that if my son gets into this, his clock has started ticking. He may live 24 hours, 24 days, or 24 months, but not more than that. He will be taken out. It is a certainty. So once a person joins the terrorist ranks, his death is certain. That message is gone. And the army has also gone to the extent of telling those parents, tell them to come back and we will let it go. You'll suffer a little bit of imprisonment, we'll rehabilitate you and get back. So that pressure is also being put on them. Otherwise, he's dead. That much is certain. So to that extent, I think, the resistance has gone down. But why is this particular organization called the Resistance Front? Because India has portrayed across the world Pakistan's cross-border support to terrorism through organizations like the Lashkar-e-Taiba, the Hizbul Mujahideen, and the others. Now, what has this done? It has put Pakistan on the back foot. So they realized that they wanted an indigenous movement coming up from amongst the people. So they created this organization from these terrorist organizations, and they gave it a beautiful word, the Resistance Front. Now, when a Westerner sees it who doesn't know what the history is, he gets that impression that the local people are resisting the government of India. But that really is not the case. So arose by any name, the resistance front or the others, it doesn't really matter. It is the same lot of people. There are now a reasonable number of, amongst the terrorist groups, the cadre, I will say it's about 80 to 90% locals only, and about 10 to 20% will be Pakistani based. But that is the nature of the game. It will never be 100% either way. And their numbers are dwindling. So they used to be at a time thousands, and now they are in 100, 200 people. That's okay. They'll be handled and they'll be eliminated.
Okay. I mean, that is reassuring. But before I move on to another region, I have a question. I mean, because this is a very emotive issue, the issue of Kashmiri Pandits. And it says, rehabilitation of the Kashmiri Pandits in the valley, one of the reasons it's not possible is because of the terror threat that they face, the threat to their lives that they face, not just from perhaps terrorists, but maybe the radical among the local population. Is there a solution to that?
You see, let me be blunt about certain things. What happened to the Kashmiri Hindus is the biggest blot and shame on India and also on the people of Kashmir. Especially on the people of Kashmir, because it was the local Muslims who suddenly got up and killed or threw out their Hindu brothers and sisters whom they had lived with for centuries. That was the extent of radicalization, and I think it is the shame which the Kashmiri Muslim will not be able to live down. Right? They will have to introspect very deeply as to what they have done. It was inhuman. Now, this is one. Number two, I think what needs to be done are three things. One, in the Kashmir Assembly, there should be an apology given. One, the Kashmir Assembly must get together and say that we apologize. A genocide has taken place in our valley. We apologize for it and it should never happen. Number two, the Kashmiri Hindus, their property must be returned to them regardless of the fact whether if they sold it or not. And number three, the people responsible should be tried for genocide. That will bring closure. If you can do these three things, I can assure you all the Hindus will go back. Otherwise, we will have to look for different solutions, and one of the solutions are to create separate areas for the return of all the refugees, which can be guarded till such time as the situation becomes more peaceful. But if these three steps which I have outlined, if this takes place, it will be a healing balm. Let us, what has really happened has been a crime against the people of India, against a small minority Hindu community, and the nation watched. The politicians watched, the security forces watched, the media watched. And that shame, I think, we still have to live down. It is time to make reparations.
Absolutely. Now, when we are talking about the people, we are seeing what's happening, for example, in Manipur, in the northeast. I mean, it seems terrorism is on the rise over there, things are on a boil, nothing seems to be quietening down. How do you think, what has gone wrong in Manipur, and how do you think the situation can be handled?
You see, Manipur is being projected as an ethnic conflict between the Kukis and the Meiteis.
Yes.
But anybody who has been there and who has studied that history, you see the Kukis and the Meiteis have lived together for many, many years. They've never had a fight, right? If at all, the fight was with other groups, but never not with the Kukis and the Meiteis. In many ways, there's a historical background to the grievance of the Meiteis because from independence, they should have been the first to get statehood. They were made a union territory, whereas they've been an independent kingdom for 2,000 years. So they felt, and then the way the laws came up, they didn't get tribal status, the Meiteis. So we come into a very strange situation that the Meiteis who are living in the valley, they can't settle in the hills, which are theirs. But the Kukis and the others who are settled in the hills can buy land where the Meiteis live in the plains. Now, for a small state, doing something like this, I think is counterproductive. And now when that was, when the Meiteis were, when the attempt was made to give them tribal status by the High Court, then this situation flared up again. In my view, these things could have been sorted out, but there is a larger game at play. And the larger game at play is not restricted to Manipur. It is looking at India as a whole. That each year, day by day, India is becoming stronger and stronger. And as India grows in strength, it will become a competitor to the United States and other Western powers. Now, the West is very keen to have India as a strong nation, as a bulwark against China. But they don't want India to become that strong that 10 or 20 years down the line, India will be a competitor to Europe and the United States. Now, that is something which is anathema to them. So situations like this, what is happening in Manipur, become leverages. There is a very large role of the drug trade which has taken place there. Myanmar is already unstable, but the border areas of Myanmar, the Chin areas, are Christian areas, right? Manipur has got a large Christian population. The Kukis are by and large Christian populations. Nagaland is a Christian population, majority Christian population, and so is Mizoram. So there is that nexus that if we can get all these Christian areas together and form a separate state, we can have a pressure point put against India. This is what Sheikh Hasina referred to before she was dethroned, so to say, before I can call it a coup, took place and, she was out. And now she's taken refuge in India. So there is a nexus of the church. There is a nexus of the gun runners. There is a nexus of the drug runners, right? And all of this is designed really not to break India, I would say. I would say it is really to keep India a pressure point available by external agencies when required to stoke up the violence. Now, I think it could have been handled better. Well, obviously anything could have been handled better. In hindsight, we can all make a lot of statements. But the fact is that it hasn't spread. I mean, the good thing is it has been confined at the moment to Manipur. I think we should be able to get this area under control. The other areas still remain peaceful. Mizoram is peaceful. Nagaland is peaceful. Shillong, the entire Meghalaya region is peaceful, and Arunachal is stable. So that is, I think, the way to go. Manipur needs to be settled. There is absolutely no doubts. And what sort of political solution will come up, that I hope the centre is working on it. But a solution is required, very urgently required. But I would still put it, there are external agencies involved. It is simply not an ethnic fight which is local. There are external agencies which are putting fuel to this fire. And it has become more violent because Myanmar is also not under proper control. The Arakan army and the other people who are actually fighting there, the Myanmar forces, the government forces, I don't think they're in control any longer of most of their country. They've just got a very small area in the capital which they're controlling, and the rest of it are with the insurgent groups or the opposition groups. I won't call them insurgent groups. So that the area along the border is also ungovernable on the Myanmar side. So that also adds to the instability, and people can come in. And they have been coming in, the Chins have been coming in into the Kuki area for a long time, and the drug trade is very, very strong. So it is not simply a question of drugs or the church or anything else. It is a combination of multiple factors. But I would still say that external agencies are the ones which are stoking it, and we need to get at that source. And the quicker we do that, the better it will be for us.
So when you're talking about external agencies, is China also involved?
In this particular case, China will take advantage of the situation, but I don't think they created it. But now that the situation is there, China will take advantage. The ISI, Pakistan's ISI will take advantage, and I think everybody will take advantage, whomsoever they can. But I don't think, in my view, I don't think they were the instigators. The prime cause wasn't theirs, but they will certainly get in now. And we have got reports that certain groups from the Kukis, etc., and the other militant groups who were based in Assam, some of these people, even from the Nagas, etc., they have crossed over to China. Now, why they have crossed over, we don't know. What they are doing there, we don't know. The numbers it is still iffy. We aren't certain. But China will take advantage. Any big power will take advantage. There's some disturbance there. So we have to put our house in order. I think things will settle down.
Yeah, but when?
This, I don't think this is going to last too long. I think 2025 may be the last year, but there will be peace. And how it takes place, it could be, the chief minister may have to go, or the chief minister will remain, or, an election will be held and a new dispensation comes up, whichever party wins. Ultimately, the democratic force is very powerful, The message which has gone in Kashmir after the elections is very strong, in Jammu and Kashmir. It's a very strong message that, okay, our vote counts. And once people know their vote counts, then it is the biggest slap on the face of terrorism and their groups. So the political force I've always appreciated. Even when you look at the Naxal areas, why have they reduced? They have reduced because the political penetration has taken through. The greater the political penetration, the lesser the space for vociferous tendencies. So here also, I think the political space has to open up very, very greatly. And the more the political space opens up, the better it is for all concerned, for the people of Manipur, for the Meiteis, the Kukis, and of course, for the rest of India.
So from Manipur, if we can come to Bangladesh, it's also in our bordering areas, and any kind of turmoil over there, and it affects us totally, completely. It affects our seven sisters in the northeast. It affects West Bengal. It affects, a whole lot of things. So this rise of the Jamaat, I would say, that is going on in Bangladesh, it's a very Talibanization of Bangladesh at one level is taking place. Isn't this a headache for India? Because there is a fear that what they will try to do is, how Pakistan is to India in terms of adversarial power, constantly promoting terrorism. Bangladesh is also going that way.
This is going to be a very serious security concern for India. Let's not beat about the bush. Okay. The Jamaat was active in 1971. They actively colluded with the Pakistan army because there is no sense of nationalism there. There is a sense of Islam. So they are looking at a consolidated Islamic state, right? Ultimately, they want to convert the whole of India into an Islam. Firstly, Bangladesh, then the whole of India, then join up, India, Pakistan, the present lot, and then the whole world as an Islamic republic.
What they call Ghazwa-e-Hind.
Ghazwa-e-Hind, that is the ultimate aim that, okay, this is what we are. Now, they were fighting for that even in 1971. This present, the administrator of
Muhammad
Yunus of Bangladesh, his family supported the Pakistan army.
They were collaborators.
They were collaborators. They were tried and they were jailed. His brother was jailed and he was freed only with an amnesty from Sheikh Mujibur Rahman. Now, what happened is when Sheikh Mujib got assassinated, again the Jamaat rose up. This fight was the fight which took place in 1971. I could put it in very broad terms. It was the fight of the nationalists versus the Islamists. And the Pakistan army, because they were using Islam to control. You see, the Pakistan army, they made some outrageous mistakes there, but we leave that aside. On a very broad macro level, there was on one side, it was the Islamists who were supporting the Pakistan army, and the nationalists who were thinking more in terms of Bengali culture, Bengali language. They wanted to preserve their traditions. That fight continued. But the Islamists have got stronger now. They got stronger when Mujib was assassinated. Then the BNP came into power and they continued becoming strong till Sheikh Hasina took power. For the last 15 years, they have been constrained. But even when they were constrained, their youth wing, the Islamic Chhatra,
Chhatra Shibir.
Islamic Chhatra Shibir, even that youth wing, they became very active. And then what Sheikh Hasina thought was, she said, we will mollycoddle them. So she started, instead of fighting them, she thought they will get them towards themselves. So they gave them certain concessions, etc. But with that, you see, Islamism only spread further. She couldn't buy peace. It didn't work. And ultimately, what you're seeing in Bangladesh, again, is a big power play. it serves American. Here again, I don't think it was the Chinese hand. It was the American hand which was at play in the ouster of Sheikh Hasina, which is why Yunus came in. He is America's baby. Right, so they wanted him there, they've got him there. It's been a long project, and Mr. Yunus himself admitted to that when he went to the United States about 2 months back, or a month or 2 months back. So there, in my view, American interests in Bangladesh are two. One is they get control of the Bay of Bengal area, and secondly, with that problem in Bangladesh, again it becomes a very convenient stick to keep India under control. The whole aim is to keep India's foreign policy hostage to American interests. The leverage. Bangladesh is an additional leverage. What happens in the northeast, Manipur, etc., again becomes an American leverage. So these are leverages which big powers play. I don't blame them. We have to be strong enough and play our own games. The Americans will play the game, the Chinese will play the game, the Pakistanis, all of them. So there is, in international relations, there is no love lost. You have to be strong, you have to be smart, and you have to win. In Bangladesh, the situation, I think, is going to get much, much worse because economically they're going down. As of now, the students are losing support. But you see, Islam is a very strong glue because that chap says, even if I die, I have got Islam. The other chap is saying, I've got my democracy, but I don't want to die for that. So a person is willing to die for his religion. And that religion also, because it has given him the right to go and kill, murder and rape and rape. He says, you're doing it for Islam, so you're okay. So that conscience, the human conscience also gets subdued. So when they carry out the killing of the Hindus there, they think it is a religious duty, which is why you see those pogroms, which is why you see over the years, even from 1951 till now, from about 30% the Hindu population has come down to 8%. So our problems are going to be twofold. One, they are going to stoke to the best of their ability terror in our northeastern states. How we can stop that is to give a very, very stern message to them that there will be very serious consequences you will pay. There has to be that deterrence. But the other one is, the refugees have always been pouring in. It's very surprising that they keep saying we don't like India, but yet the Bangladeshi Muslim comes in, the Rohingya comes in. He doesn't settle in Bangladesh, which is the country for the Muslims, or in Pakistan or anywhere else. They want to come to India. I think we need to detect all these illegal immigrants and see that they are sent back. That has to be a concerted effort now. Bangladesh is a powder keg. It is up to the people of Bangladesh now to fight for their civilizational ethos, to fight for their culture, to fight for the language. Otherwise, rest assured, within 5 to 10 years, the official language in Bangladesh will be Urdu and not Bengali. They would have lost their language, they would have lost their culture, they lost their religion many, many years ago. They will lose it all. And they will become a rabid, radicalized Islamic nation. They'll be worse than Pakistan.
So when you're looking now that we see that a lot of congruence is coming in between Pakistan and Bangladesh in terms of policy, a lot of discussions taking place. Apparently arms are also coming in from Pakistan into Bangladesh through containers. So the thing is that, do you see, is it just Northeast, or do they actually want to create maybe even states like West Bengal and Assam, incidents of terror, killing civilians? So do you think they will actually go into those, to those lengths?
They will.
They will?
They're not going to do it directly. But you see all the terrorists who were in jail, in the Bangladesh jails, all of them have been freed. And Pakistan is supplying them arms. The ISI is active there. So those groups are going to come up again. That is why I'm saying we need to give them a very strong message. And that, these are ruthless games.
What is that message?
That message is that if you start sending terrorists to India, there will be very severe consequences, which could be kinetic also. That has to be the message.
Kinetic as well,
meaning
a warfare.
Well, kinetic doesn't really have to be hot war. There are many other ways to do it,
Okay.
You can have airstrikes on their camps and other issues. But otherwise, for the moment, we should put very strong political and diplomatic pressure, one. And number two, your economic leverages.
Yes.
And we will have to start treating Bangladesh the way we treat Pakistan.
As an enemy state.
As an enemy state. So if push comes to shove, that is what we will do. some of the Bangladeshis have told me even India will suffer. I said, yes, India will suffer a little bit, but Bangladesh will be destroyed. Let's be very clear about it. They should not go down their path. And if they go down that path, we should not be a weak state. We don't want them to go down to that path. Even today, we are willing to extend a hand of friendship to them to get them out of the rut which they are in. But should they persist, then they must be ready to face the consequences, and the Indian state should be strong enough to give it. I'm not talking of a full-scale war with Bangladesh. No way. There are many ways to exercise leverages, right? Especially on the economic, political, and the diplomatic domains, and that is what we should do.
But kinetic is always a possibility.
Kinetic, it should always be the option, especially of training camps which are across the border, which should be taken out by the Indian Air Force, the Indian Army, missiles, or any other way which we deem appropriate. The way we have carried out those surgical strikes in Pakistan, we can do the same in Bangladesh. That is it. That option should never be kept at abeyance. And it should be made very clear. We don't want to do it. Don't force our hand. So it is up to the government of Bangladesh to ensure that their territory is not used as a safe haven for terrorist groups operating against India.
Yeah, if we can handle Pakistan, Bangladesh is nothing.
Should be easier.
This has to be the last segment, of course. The thing is, Pakistan and Afghanistan. What is the situation over there? I mean, Pakistan state seems to be totally, it's not a state. God knows what it is. It's in a state of chaos always. But the terrorist groups, it seems their generals are still supporting terror, and there is so much terrorism still going on inside Pakistan. In fact, perhaps Afghanistan seems more stable than Pakistan right now. What is going on in Pakistan?
You see, in Pakistan, there are two types of terrorist groups. One which the Pakistan army supports. Those are the terrorist groups which are which they use as their, as their tools against India. Okay, so it is the instruments which they use as part of the foreign policy to browbeat India. The Lashkar-e-Taiba, the Hizbul Mujahideen, Jaish-e-Mohammed, all that entire gangbang, it is there, and they use it against India. That is one. There is a second group, you see, ever since the Lal Masjid was attacked in Musharraf's time, the Tehreek-e-Taliban came up, and it is a conglomeration of about 31 smaller groups. They come under that umbrella of the TTP, and they're all based on the Pak-Afghan border. Now, they want an Islamic state. And they are fighting the Pakistan army and the security forces to create an Islamic state in Pakistan.
In true sense.
In the true sense, yes. So so now Pakistan is in a dilemma, how they should handle it. Firstly, then of course we have the Baloch freedom fighters. The Baloch want freedom, so their groups are also fighting against the army. A small little group from Sindh has also started now. Then in Gilgit-Baltistan, they're having their own security problems. So in a sense, what has happened is, in the whole of Pakistan, there are very serious security concerns there. That is one. Number two, their economy is in a mess. And there are no easy options. But very frankly, Joyeeta, I'm sure they can get out of these two problems. If they can sort out the third, which I have considered the most serious problem in Pakistan. It is not the terrorism which they face, or the terrorism which they have created, neither is it the economy. It is their political instability. Now, Imran Khan, I don't think he did a good job when he was the Prime Minister, and I think he was a pretty rotten Prime Minister. But despite that, he is the most popular leader in Pakistan today. He's captured the imagination of the Pakistani people, regardless of what I feel about him. And the Pakistan army doesn't want him. Now, that political instability which has been created because their elections will never be free and fair. Whoever the army wants will become the prime minister, not what the people want. If they cannot solve political instability, they are not in a position to address the other two problems. And how they are going to address political instability, I don't know, because if Imran Khan comes back, then the army is put on the back foot. And if the army is put on the back foot, they are not going to accept it. So they are going to have very serious internal problems of their own. That doesn't mean they won't interfere with India. The ISI will continue to do whatever they have to do. right? So we have to be careful. But Pakistan has this problem, these three major problems of their political instability, of their economic crisis, and of internal security being what it is. And that is going to continue for some time. So at least for the next 5 to 10 years, I visualize Pakistan to be in a state of flux. Afghanistan, on the other hand, it is not going to be prosperous, but it is going to be stable and peaceful. It is very harsh, but they will survive. And the Americans are actually giving them financial assistance, so that they keep their heads above the water.
Yeah, if in this context, if I can ask a question. So all these efforts that are being made by Pakistan to portray Taliban as the fount of terrorism, so do you think that, you have to talk about Afghanistan from where terrorism is emanating and not from Pakistan? Do you think the West is going to fall for this?
No. You see, the thing is, you speak to any of the Americans who are in the know or the West, everybody knows what is happening. Pakistan suited the United States' geopolitical interests so long as the American troops were in Afghanistan. Once American troops left Afghanistan, Pakistan's role finished, because the supply lines to the Americans went through Pakistan. So Pakistan became a frontline state. Whenever Pakistan becomes a frontline state, they get the support of the West. It doesn't really matter what Pakistan does. But now they're no longer a frontline state, and the Americans are quite happy to do business with the Afghan Taliban. Business in the sense that they are paying them monthly. There is a particular sum of money which the Americans pay the Afghans, and the Afghans are quite happy with that. It keeps their head above the water, and it keeps America's interests safe. So Americans have sorted out their geopolitical interests, but I think the amount of money which America is spending on Afghanistan is far less than what they would have done had their own forces been there. Maintaining their forces was a very difficult and time-consuming job, and maintaining the Afghan government which they propped up. So to that extent, their expenditure is reduced dramatically, but they've still got their finger in the pie.
So having the Taliban there, does it suit our interest?
Well, let us say that the Taliban is not our enemy. Right. The Taliban is not going to do anything to destabilize India. That the Pakistanis will do. But the Taliban is very concerned about Afghanistan. Yeah, I beg your pardon, the Taliban is very concerned about Pakistan. Right? So the differences between Afghan Taliban and Pakistan are will always remain there. Because a lot of these Pakhtun areas, the entire Northwest Frontier Province, the erstwhile one, that used to be Afghan area. Till a imaginary line was drawn by the Brits more than 100 years ago, and it split the Pashtun lands. Now the Afghans want it back. The Pakistanis don't want to give it. So they have a problem. We don't have any problem, right? If required, we don't have diplomatic relations, but there's no reason for us to treat the Afghans as an enemy. And there's no reason for us to, in fact, we will support the people of Afghanistan, and there's no reason for us to treat the Afghanistan Taliban, which is ruling now, as the enemy. We can deal with them, though we don't have diplomatic relations.
Here specifically I want to talk about this rise of, now that there is a possible rise of the ISIS once again, as we can witness in Syria and Iran, Syria particularly. Do you think that will have an effect in the Afpak region, which automatically will have an effect in India? There is already some ISIS KP that has come up in Pakistan. So do you think the rise of the return of the ISIS is going to have any impact on us?
No, you see, very frankly, I don't think so. There will be an impact, certainly, you see, because when we are talking of radicalized minds, you don't require guns and manpower. That radicalization can take place on the television sets or through the social media. So people can get radicalized. And to some, it becomes a very romantic idea, of a Islamic world where, there is just one person ruling everybody and all that. We've got 57 Islamic nations. They can't come together. I don't know how they're going to get the world together. If you really feel that way, you should start with that. But so I don't see any of that happening. They are going to have enough problems of their own in Syria. Syria is going to be unstable for a very, very long period of time, because though the HTS, the Hayat
Hayat,
Tehreer Sham is, taken power, but they don't have control over the whole of Syria. The border with Turkey, right? The northern areas which are under the Kurds, which the Americans are supporting, then in the south and in the west, where the Shias live, and within themselves there are many factions. So it's going to be a long battle. If they have to consolidate their energy and resources, I think they will first try to hit at Israel.
Yeah.
But Israel has already taken enough precautions to prevent that happening. Iran has been rendered as a very, very weak player now, right? So Iran has been hit in Syria, they've been hit in Lebanon, and they've been hit in Gaza. I think they're Iran is in a very weak position. There will be a consolidation. I think for the next 2 to 3 years, people will be consolidating and doing what they have to do. I don't see it exploding or flaring up anyway. And my gut feeling is that their wars are going to stabilize next year or very, very soon. And the Russian-Ukraine war is also going to be over. So we are looking at a period of stability. Not that there will be peace, but let us say there will be no active insurgencies flaring up the way we thought they would. I don't see that happening, but the problems will still remain.
But
That's
yes, to conclude, India will also have to watch its neighborhood, particularly these two countries. It's ironic that, the Taliban is ruling Afghanistan and we are confident about Afghanistan, but we cannot be confident about a puny little, basically, it's not even a nation. It's not even worth calling a nation like Bangladesh. I mean, it's a nuisance. I mean, I know Bangladeshis are not going to like it, but sorry. That is the only description that comes to my mind with the way they are behaving, frankly. And yeah, we have to be very, very concerned about Pakistan and Bangladesh now. So yes, we have a double headache.
Yes.
Thank you, Major General Katoch, for coming on the show.
Thank you, Joyeeta.
Yeah, and thank you, viewers, for watching. Until the next time.